here in a matter of moments. You can that city council headline's a good one if you want, J-Dubs. Or we can consider, actually for the other one, go the slot 7, other new restaurant news around Charlottesville area. Brian O'Connor's gone. That is a tough pill to swallow for Virginia fans. I'm as big a Brian O'Connor as anyone out there. Know Brian well, fairly well. I've had a pleasure of interviewing him a number of times in my radio, television, and now I Love CVille network time. And his departure to Mississippi State is demoralizing. He is Virginia baseball like, the Pope is Catholic, like turkeys are for Thanksgiving, like Carter's Mountain is some of the best views in Charlottesville. And his departure to Mississippi State should have us all asking the question, what happened? And then after we ask the question, what happened, our follow-up question should be, who's to blame for this? And when you're dealing with, millions and tens of millions of dollars in fan base engagement, there's someone to blame. And it may not be what people want to hear, and finger pointing may not necessarily be what people want, but it's fair to point the fingers and ask what's going on. So we'll talk about that today. We'll talk about the closing of Tubby's. Had a phone conversation just before the show started with one of the team members at Tubby's, and they have confirmed that Tubby's will close at the end of June. They were told that it was June 27th, and the reason given to me was it was just something the owner needed to do. So Tubby's, ladies and gentlemen, is now officially closing at the end of the month. We'll talk about it today as yet another Charlottesville icon in food and beverage is choosing to close its doors. Judah, you have the list of local icons in food and beverage that have closed in the last 12 months readily available?
Yeah.
Okay. I want to have that list ready and have you read them off to the viewers and listeners. A lot we're going to cover on the program, including faculty, UVA faculty, UVA students, UVA alumni, now circulating a letter in support of Jim Ryan, as there's growing anticipation that the Glenn Youngkin-dominated Board of Visitors are growing eager to replace the president of the University of Virginia. We'll talk about that topic on the show. I see we're live on my personal Facebook page, Judah. We're live on I Love CVille Food. We're live on the I Love CVille group. We're live on the I Love CVille Facebook page. Can you confirm we're live on LinkedIn? Thank you very much. Are we live on YouTube?
Yep.
Excellent work, Judah. Are we live on Twitter?
Yep.
Excellent. Which headline most intrigues you, J-Dubs?
I mean, it's sad that Tubby's is closing. It's sad that we're losing another icon. We see restaurants come and go, but some of these old timers are institutions, and I understand that sometimes it's just time to let it go. But it would be nice, it's great when they can pass that torch to someone so that we don't lose the history.
Yep. Well said. All right, let's rock and roll. Viewers and listeners, do us the favor of liking and sharing the show. We ask nothing of you except you like and share the show. If you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. We work hard for you. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the notifications button so you're alerted when we go live on air. Viewers and listeners, it's the Monday edition of the I Love CVille show, and it's a somber I Love CVille show, but it's a show that will go on nevertheless. Judah, we can rock and roll when you're ready.
Quiet on the set.
Welcome to the I Love CVille show. My name is Jerry Miller. Thank you kindly for joining us. Good Monday afternoon to you and yours. It's a pleasure to connect with you guys through the I Love CVille network in our building in downtown Charlottesville, the Macklin building, where we have executive offices that we manage and that we rent to entrepreneurs all over Charlottesville, Albemarle, and across Central Virginia. We rented one this morning to a commodities trader from Houston, Texas. Just moved to the area from Houston. Is a man who trades commodities who I'm excited to get to know. Is our connection good there, J-Dubs?
We might be getting a little interference.
Okay. Judah's going to make sure the connection is connected on his end. I am getting notified that the connection's a bit choppy there. A lot we're going to cover on the program, ladies and gentlemen, including the closure of Tubby's restaurant later this month. Had a conversation with one of the team members on the phone before the program started, and the rumor mill is correct. Tubby's will close later this month. The team member indicated it was the 27th of June when it most likely will be the last day for Tubby's. It's a long list of iconic food and beverage businesses that have chosen to close their doors over the last 12 months. We will update that list, have it published on ilovecville.com, and relay that list to you today on the I Love CVille show. I want to talk Brian O'Connor today. Brian O'Connor is heading to Mississippi State, a demoralizing piece of news for Virginia fans. Brian O'Connor, as beloved as Tony Bennett amongst the Virginia fan base, a national champion, Brian O'Connor, and a man who epitomizes Virginia baseball like the Pope epitomizes Catholicism and goodwill, like turkeys epitomize Thanksgiving, like fireworks epitomize the 4th of July, and like, frankly speaking, college football epitomizes the fall around Charlottesville and Albemarle County. What happened with Brian O'Connor heading to Mississippi State? How did we get to this point? In the middle of the season, Brian O'Connor on the Jerry and Jerry show said, "I'm not going anywhere. I'm committed to UVA." And now Brian O'Connor is in Mississippi, and he's just a few days away from officially being announced as in live form at the baseball stadium, being announced as the new skipper for Mississippi State. When do we start pointing fingers at the athletic director? And I hate to say this, but the athletic director is the manager, the executive of the athletic department. And in one calendar year, we have seen Tony Bennett leave the basketball program. In one calendar year, we have seen Brian O'Connor leave the baseball program. And in one calendar year, we've seen the Virginia football team post the worst record of any of the power conference football teams over the last 3 years. I'll give you that again. In the same calendar year, we have lost the national championship, national champion basketball coach, the national champion baseball coach, and the football program has the worst record of any of the power conferences in college football. Goodness gracious, it is a low point right now for Virginia athletics. We're going to talk about that today. We're going to talk on today's program, speaking of the University of Virginia, there's a letter that's circulating now that's being signed by current faculty, former faculty, current students, alumni, and heavy hitters. And it's a letter that's being signed in support of Jim Ryan. I want to talk about that on today's show as the anticipation, ladies and gentlemen, is Jim Ryan may be on thin ice with the Youngkin-led Board of Visitors, now in the final stages of Youngkin's term in governor, and a change potentially on the near horizon. At least that's what the scuttlebutt. A lot we're going to cover on the program. The closing of Tubby's, another icon, ladies and gentlemen, has chosen to close its doors. Judah Wickhauer, on a two-shot, I ask you the same question to start the program, Judah Wickhauer. The headline that most intrigued you today and why? A somber show, but a show that must happen here. Which headline most intrigued you and why today?
I think that with all of the closings that we've seen, it's a shame that we're losing an integral part of Charlottesville's character with each loss. Of course, something may take their place and may become an iconic part of Charlottesville's history down the road. But seeing some seeing old favorites choose to throw in the towel rather than try to pass the torch is always demoralizing.
I saw some social media traction over the weekend. It appears that there is an auction of sorts scheduled for Tubby's, and that auction notification is making its way around social media groups. The Charlottesville Then and Now group in particular, a live auction for Saturday, June 28th at 10 a.m. at Tubby's on East High Street. I spoke to a team member on the phone today. She said our last day is the 27th of June. So her timeline, we're closing on the 27th, coincides with this auction notice where on the 28th of June, Tubby's on East High Street, everything goes. I'm going to read directly from the auction notification. Everything goes, equipment, cookware, all accessories. A buyer must have photo ID to register. All items sold with no guarantees. All sales final. No buyer premium. Payment cash or card. The auctioneer is Pamela Collier. She's a licensed auctioneer, and she has photos that will be added soon. Ladies and gentlemen, Tubby's has been around since 1982. We have a list of iconic food and beverage businesses, restaurants that have closed in the last 12 months. We will relay them to you. First, we talk the Brian O'Connor news. Weave me in on a one-shot. I want to give props to Charlottesville Sanitary Supply. 60 consecutive years, make that 61 consecutive years in business for John Vermillion and Andrew Vermillion. John Vermillion is 4 generations in Albemarle County, and he's a stand-up guy. I want someone to tell John Vermillion this. I've gotten to know John over the last 6 or 7 months, and this man is a stand-up, honest man of integrity, and his son, Andrew Vermillion, follows the father's mold. John and Andrew Vermillion at Charlottesville Sanitary Supply are where you should shop for your sanitary supplies, your pool cleaning needs. This is a business 61 years that we want to see in Charlottesville for another 61 years, and we got to support businesses like Charlottesville Sanitary Supply. Judah Wickhauer, you have 2 headlines that we can rotate on third on screen with Brian O'Connor. He is now the head coach at Mississippi State, and as Jessica has highlighted on the I Love CVille group, Jessica Wingfield Lilly, O'Connor is bringing his staff with him. The only one not going with him is the pitching coach. But Coach McMullen is following Brian O'Connor to Mississippi State. This is a demoralizing turn of events for Virginia fans because Brian O'Connor put Virginia baseball on the map. And his time in Charlottesville, he has proven, folks, this is not an exaggeration, this is not hyperbole. He has proven that he is the best baseball coach in college baseball. The records, the wins and losses back it up. And he's taken a program, Virginia, UVA, under the former head coach, Dennis Womack, that was an absolute joke, an afterthought. When Womack was coaching here in Charlottesville and Virginia baseball was stuck in quicksand, there would be literally dozens of fans in the seats at the stadium. Dozens. I was covering Virginia baseball for the Daily Progress for Jerry Ratcliffe. I started my 3rd year at the University of Virginia. This was around 2002 when I was working for Jerry Ratcliffe at the Daily Progress. Virginia baseball was so off the radar in the year 2002, 2003, when I was working for Jerry Ratcliffe, that Hootie sent me, low man on the totem pole, to the press conference that welcomed Brian O'Connor as head coach for Virginia baseball. And at that press conference, it was me, low man on the totem pole at the Daily Progress, and Jeff White of the Richmond Times-Dispatch asking Brian O'Connor, who was in his early 30s, questions about his new job at the University of Virginia in Charlottesville. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to highlight that again. I was a reporter for the Daily Progress for Jerry Hootie Ratcliffe, the peon on the totem pole, and Virginia baseball registered so lowly on the sports department on Charlottesville and on Central Virginia's radar that the sports editor, Jerry Ratcliffe, sent yours truly to the press box at Davenport Field to cover the announcement, the welcoming of Brian O'Connor, who was in his early 30s, as the new baseball coach at the University of Virginia. And only one other reporter, Jeff White of the Richmond Times-Dispatch at the time. He now works for the Virginia Sports Department and Media Relations. He was the only one there besides me. Me, Jeff, and Brian talking about his job as the new head coach of Virginia baseball. Today, The Cavaliers are one of the best baseball programs in the nation. They're a national champion. They're a household commodity. You can't find a seat at Davenport. You can't find a seat at the Dish. The Dish and Davenport have had multiple expansions from a seat standpoint. They've put how many pros into Major League Baseball? More than we can count. Household names: Mark Reynolds, Ryan Zimmerman. Household names, ladies and gentlemen, matriculating from UVA baseball to the major leagues. Zimmerman damn near close to a Hall of Famer, ladies and gentlemen, and that's under Brian O'Connor's watch. And today, we wake up after hearing rumors all weekend long. Rumors first reported to you guys on the I Love CVille show late last week on Thursday that Brian O'Connor was heading to Mississippi State. And within a 12-month period of time, this is very similar. There's a theme, a motif here. Within a 12-month period of time, Judah, within a 12-month period of time, viewers and listeners, we have seen Tony Bennett leave, we've seen Brian O'Connor leave, and we've seen the Virginia football team post the worst record of any of the power conferences over the last 3 years. Very similar theme to the iconic restaurants in the Charlottesville area that have closed in the last 12 months. We have to ask the question, what the hell happened? What the hell went wrong? And unfortunately, and this is the nature of big money college athletics, we have to ask the question, who is to blame? Because when you lose your baseball coach and you lose your basketball coach and your football team is the worst over the last 3 years of any of the power conferences, you have to ask the question, who is to blame? Is this just about money? Is this just about a lack of scholarships? Is this about midweek scheduling difficulties for Virginia baseball? Out-of-conference scheduling for Virginia baseball? Is this about investment in the program? Or do we start asking the question, is this a leadership issue? Does this rest on the feet of the leader of the athletic department, Carla Williams, who got a contract extension in nondescript fashion? Carla Williams was extended as the athletic director of the University of Virginia without a note, a press release, a mention to media. If it was not for Chris Graham of the Augusta Free Press, who did a Freedom of Information Act request, a FOIA, we would not have known that Carla Williams got a contract extension. It's that kind of lack of communication, that kind of backroom dealing, that kind of disingenuous communication that has all of us in the fan base asking what is going on with our three most important sports, football, basketball, and baseball. And I understand we've had success in tennis. I understand we've had some success in some of these other non-revenue sports, but look at what just happened with men's lacrosse. A sub-500 record for men's lacrosse. Sub-500 for Lars Tiffany's program this past season. Did not make the playoffs, did not make the postseason, Lars's men's lacrosse team. So in a 12-month calendar period of time, Virginia Athletic Department and UVA fans, think about what we've just seen. We've seen men's basketball fail to make the big dance. We've seen Tony Bennett retire, Ron Sanchez thrown into the lion's den like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. We've seen Ron Sanchez not renewed. We've got a guy from VCU coming to lead the program. We've seen Tony Elliott and the Virginia football team post the worst record over the last 3 years. Brian O'Connor's team not make the postseason. Brian O'Connor peace out for Mississippi State. Men's lacrosse have a sub-500 record and not make the big dance, not make the postseason. And we need to start asking our questions, what is going on here? And then the next question you have to ask yourself this, as Mark Coleman is highlighting on I Love CVille Facebook, does any of this fall on the school president? Is this just on Carla Williams? Does it fall on the school president as well? In a calendar year where we've seen students pepper sprayed by the militarized Virginia State Police during a pro-Palestine protest on grounds, in a calendar year where we've seen UVA Health in a white-collar racketeering fiasco where staff and faculty, medical professionals, physicians have alleged fraudulent billing and medical chart changing to maintain performance standards. In a calendar year where a triple murder-homicide report was redacted so much that one of the mothers of the murdered football players said, "I just want to know what happened to my son. This report is redacted and I know nothing." In a calendar year, ladies and gentlemen, where diversity, equity, and inclusion are in the crossfire, we've had soap operas left and right. And if we're going to hold Carla Williams accountable for the soap opera that is Tony Bennett, Ron Sanchez, Virginia basketball failing to make the postseason, Brian O'Connor, baseball coaching vacancy, failing to make the postseason, Tony Elliott, Virginia football, worst record over the last 3 years of any of the power conferences, men's lacrosse, failing to make the postseason, sub-500 record. If we're going to hold Carla Williams accountable for that, and I think she should be accountable for it, does Jim Ryan is he not culpable as well, especially with the other collateral damage and the soap opera headlines? Bob Shada watching the program, the mayor of Birdwood, the vice mayor of Vivace Restaurant. He says, "I'm not sure we can pin this on Carla. Don't know why I'm thinking it, and I'm surely not defending her hiring record, but I think what's going on is way above her head." Does that mean, Bob Shada, it's on Jim Ryan? I trust you, Bobby Shada. Jeremy Wilson. Once again, he's watching in Eastern Tennessee, Jeremy Wilson. Carla Williams strikes again with such disrespect for a great coach. He says she absolutely needs to go. Jeremy Wilson, thank you for watching the program. Maria Marshall Barnes, Sheila Williams, Logan Wells Claylo watching the program. Kevin Yancey says, Ryan has enough on his plate. This falls squarely on Carla Williams' feet. 2, if not 3 Hall of Fame coaches. Kevin Yancey says, what's it say when one university has lost 3, but 2 Hall of Fame coaches in a short period of time? Elliot Harding walking by the studio, the talented defense attorney. It is a mess over there. It is an absolute mess. And guess what, ladies and gentlemen? I'm gonna tell you what's really gonna boil the hot water. Tony Elliott, this year, if the campaign does not go according to plan, if Virginia football struggles in 2025, if you think the crossfire is heavy for Carla Williams right now, wait to see what happens if Virginia football, who's invested tens of millions of dollars into its program through NIL, through collectives, and through alumni donations, if they struggle out of 2025, oh my, wait till you see what happens. And don't forget that Virginia basketball in a couple of years is rolling out a new licensing fee arrangement where you have to pay more licensing fees, pay more yearly fees, do more donations if you want to keep your seats at the John Paul Jones Arena. John Blair watching the program. I'm going to get to his comments in a matter of moments about Tubbies. Viewers and listeners, let us know your thoughts. Philip Dow watching in Scottsville. I see 9 different states on our heat map watching the program right now. Ginny Hu, thank you for the retweet. North Carolina, Georgia, South Carolina, Florida, Pennsylvania, Kentucky, welcome to the show. Ginny Hu says this, if the Board of Visitors had fired Jim Ryan, Carla Williams would be gone too. That's a domino to follow. If the BOV chooses to fire Jim Ryan, the Board of Visitors, and we're going to get to the next story in a matter of moments, but if the BOV chooses to fire Jim Ryan, is Carla Williams the next domino to fall? Judah Wickhauer, 2-shot. I know baseball and Virginia athletics is not your bailiwick, but you follow the show close enough. Football, dead last of any of the power conferences over the last 3 years. Mm-hmm. Tony Bennett retires weeks before the season, shocks the world. Ron Sanchez thrown into the lion's den. He does not get renewed. He finds out, Ron Sanchez, the interim head coach, after the ACC tournament, when he loses the ACC tournament, he finds out while he's in a hotel room in Charlotte that he's not going to get his job. He is sent after he loses the ACC tournament. He's sent out to greet the press, to answer questions from the media, without knowing whether his job is safe or not. He is literally going to a firing squad. And then after that firing squad goes to a Charlotte hotel room and finds out in the hotel room after the ACC tournament that he's canned.
Very, very poorly done.
Brian O'Connor, now Mississippi State.
And if I'm not mistaken, I've heard he's likely taking most of his staff with him.
All the staff with the pitching coach.
Oof. That's really rough. We have fair knowledge that that Bennett left because he didn't like what was going on with the portal, right?
And Bennett says he doesn't recognize college athletics anymore. He chooses to peace out, and on his way out, he says our 2019 class, the last truly amateur college basketball national champion. That was a dig at what's happening with college sports.
And I guess the same can't be said for O'Connor if he's going to another school.
O'Connor going to Mississippi State that is going to pour more financial resources into its baseball program. Mississippi State is one of the pinnacles, if not the pinnacle, from fan engagement, stadium experience, and financial resources allocated to baseball. Mississippi State is actually pulling some money from football to baseball because it needs so much down there, where Virginia, on the other hand, is going balls deep into the football program. All the resources to the football program, 85% of it is what I've been told, to the football program. This is a mess, ladies and gentlemen. And it's a segue to the next headline. Lower third on screen, Jim Ryan. There's an article that's hit the media and that's hit our inboxes. This from retired UVA faculty. Milton Adams has signed this. This is a letter from retired UVA faculty. This letter from retired UVA faculty supports Jim Ryan. It's been signed by the following faculty. It's in my inbox. Milton Adams, Richard Brownlee, Robert Bruner, Jonathan Cannon, Dory Fontaine, William Kehoe, Patricia Lampkin, Craig Littlepage, the former athletic director, Dennis Proffitt, Reuben Rainey, Robert Rabondo, Claire Ross, Catherine Thornton, and Carol Wood. All those folks have signed this letter. They circulated to us with influence and with media clout. They have written what is a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 paragraph letter in support of Jim Ryan that absolutely douses the Jefferson Council with gasoline and kerosene and throws the proverbial match on the council, calling the Jefferson Council in this letter, I want to use their words, tragically out of touch and an embarrassment to today's university. This letter hits our inboxes and will be in your media outlets after you watch this show. I encourage you to read it. It coincides with a similar campaign that's circulating on social media. This similar campaign that's circulating on social media was authored by folks close to Jim Ryan in his cabinet. And that campaign that's circulating on social media, do you have that letter up?
Is that the UVA sign-on letter?
That's the UVA sign-on letter. Set the stage for the viewers and listeners, Judah Wickhauer.
They are asking for for alumni, students, parents, faculty, staff, and friends who support UVA to add their voices by signing on to a letter giving a rundown, a bullet point list of what they deem are some of the reasons why Jim Ryan should stick around and be a part of UVA's future.
Do you see what's happening? Do you see what's happening? We have this clash of two different ideologies. And on one side of the battlefield is the general and the army led by Burt Ellis and the Jefferson Council. This army is led by Burt Ellis, who was removed from the Board of Visitors by Glenn Youngkin. And their effort, their push, their mission, their MO is to remove Jim Ryan, to return the single sanction honor code to prominence at UVA, to protect and preserve Thomas Jefferson's legacy, to make the UVA experience more affordable for in-state students and out-of-state students, and to cut what they say is bloat on the payroll, with bloat associated with too many administrators, too many deans, and too much money allocated to DEI.
Yeah.
That is a contingent of foot soldiers and an influence of a battalion of influence led by Burt Ellis and the Jefferson Council. On the other side of the battlefield, on the other side of the Mason-Dixon line, on the other side of the Atlantic Ocean, you have the other contingent of foot soldiers. And that contingent of foot soldiers is led by Jim Ryan as the general. The lieutenant in that army, Carla Williams. Another lieutenant in that battalion, Robert Hardy, the rector. And they're doing whatever it takes to maintain Jim Ryan in his post at general, whatever it takes to keep diversity, equity, inclusion in full swing with money being allocated to the effort, whatever it takes to potentially water down the single sanction honor code, and whatever it takes to preserve UVA's moniker as a, quote, new Ivy League school, end quote. A clash of two different ideologies, and smack dab in the middle of this battalion, these two armies, smack dab in the middle of this warfare. You know who's smack dab in the middle of the warfare? Smack dab in the middle, straddling the Mason-Dixon line? Smack dab in the middle on a float, on a raft in the Atlantic Ocean as we prepare for proverbially World War III. You know who's in the middle?
Who?
Glenn Youngkin, the governor. And he has to assess the political climate. He has to have his finger on the pulse of each movement. And he has to determine who's going to win. And Glenn Youngkin has the go nuclear button in his hand. And his thumb's in the air. And Glenn Youngkin's thumb on the go nuclear button is going down like this. It hasn't pushed the button. It's close to pushing the button. And if the governor, who's on a dinghy, on a raft in the Atlantic Ocean between two armies, straddling the Mason-Dixon line between two armies, smack dab in the battlefield, chooses to push his button down on the red go nuclear button, the dominoes will follow as I depict right now. Ryan, potentially pink slip. That may collateral damage, pink slip, Carla Williams, the athletic director. That could completely revitalize the University of Virginia experience from a cost expense standpoint, slashing administrative costs, cutting human capital, and passing potentially savings on to students, their parents, in-state and out-of-state. DEI would be no more, federal funding could be preserved, and this new Ivy moniker will be yesteryear. If he chooses not to push the red go nuclear button, Ryan's job stays, is preserved. Carla Williams' job is preserved. The new Ivy moniker will resonate for here till forevermore. The cost to attend the University of Virginia will continue to escalate. Damn near $100,000 for out-of-state students, undergrad, UVA. We are living and breathing a influence battle like we've never seen at Thomas Jefferson's University in its history. And instead of blood and wounds, and instead of gurneys and machine guns and deathbeds and tombstones, instead of bazookas and submarines and rifles, they are fighting, ladies and gentlemen, with clout, with social media. They are fighting with advertisements and legacy media. They are fighting with influence, with wealth, with backroom dealing. And we, the viewer and listener, sit on our perch like I'm sitting right now, watching it all play out. But it's a domino, it's a game of dominoes that may or may not fall in the very near future. Viewers and listeners, let us know your thoughts. Put them in the feed, and I will relay them, damn it, live on air. Chad Jones watching the program. Enough money to give Carla a 29% raise, but not enough money to fund one of the top teams at UVA. Chad Jones's comment on the feed. I got 13 states on the feed watching Judah and I on the I Love CVille show right now. What do you make of the letter from faculty that hit our inboxes in traditional media, retired? And what do you make of this Jim Ryan effort that's led by someone inside his cabinet, Judah Wickower, a call to action, basically a GoFundMe of support that's going on? Judah Wickower, the show is yours. Then I'll go to viewers and listeners' comments.
I mean, I see merit in both sides. Obviously, this add-on sign-on letter, it lists a lot of stuff that's gone on in the school, and when they talk about UVA being one of only 2 public universities that meet 100% of demonstrated financial need, when they talk about successful campaigns to raise over $5 billion in 18 months. They're not wrong, but when you look at the other side, there's a lot of questioning. There's a lot of people casting aspersions on the Jefferson Council, saying they're just a bunch of old guys who graduated in the 60s and 70s. And then you've got people making some good points about the fact that there was corruption and fraud that was allowed to fester in the UVA health department.
And we have documentation that Ryan knew in advance that white-collar racketeering, corruption, fraud was very much alive and gaining momentum with UVA Health, which is the top revenue generator of any division at the University of Virginia. Without UVA Health, there is no University of Virginia of this magnitude.
Yeah, there's question about why the student wasn't better investigated before the murders.
Chris Darnell Jones
and
popped with a weapon prior to the triple murder of UVA football players.
There's also, leading out of that, question of why so much of the information was redacted on the report. There have been other reports about other questionable happenings.
UVA health report, not released to the media. Triple murder report, not released and full force.
Those reports...
Clandestine communication.
Those reports all cost us money.
Millions of dollars. Taxpayer dollars.
Yeah. So, like you said, there are battle lines that are drawn. There are 2 opposing sides. I don't think there is any way they're going to come to an agreement. And they're different viewpoints that are never going to share a table. You're right. I think Youngkin ultimately will have to put his finger on the pulse of Virginia and decide whether, as one of his, I would imagine, final acts as governor, because I believe he'll be leaving before the end of this year, whether that will be to really upend the school.
Are we, ladies and gentlemen, are we viewers and listeners, are we followers of the University of Virginia, whether alumni, whether fans, or whether students? Are we approaching the Battle of Appomattox? And the Battle of Appomattox Courthouse is where Confederate General Robert E. Lee surrendered his army to Ulysses S. Grant, the general of the Union Army, on April 9th, 1865. Are we approaching the Battle of Appomattox with this epic fight of clout, power, and influence right here in Charlottesville, Virginia? Only time will tell. But I'll tell you, the plot just got much thicker with Brian O'Connor's surprise announcement that he's heading to Mississippi State.
No doubt.
The plot got much, much, much thicker with retired UVA faculty and directors. I mean, Craig Littlepage signed this letter, voicing their support for Jim Ryan. And the plot got much thicker with the Jefferson Council going even more balls deep with its push, with its pursuit of its MO. Sit back, grab your popcorn, and watch, because the next 30 to 45 days will undoubtedly be one of documentary proportions here in Charlottesville, Virginia. The next headline, Judah Wickhauer, put it on screen and relay it to the viewers and listeners before I offer some commentary. And John Blair has this, his photo on screen. I think the questions about Jim Ryan are a little more complicated than either side wants to acknowledge. A major university president probably spends 50% or more of their time as a fundraiser. Whether we like it or not, that's the reality. The real question about Jim Ryan, whether he appointed the appropriate individuals to his cabinet to run the operations of the university. I can guarantee you this, he's not nearly as involved in the operational questions as either side wants to think. Jim Ryan's provost.
Very good points.
Jim Ryan's provost, who's running the University of Virginia, Ian Balcom, is out. A nationwide search, I believe, is undergoing for that provost spot. Ian Balcom is, what? Middlebury College president? He got out of Dodge. He left the OK Corral, Ian Balcom, before the Wyatt brothers showed up. Because Ian Balcom knew as soon as Doc Holliday, Wyatt, and the rest of his brothers showed up to the corral, that all hell would play out. So Balcom said, get me out of the OK Corral and get me to another territory where I can pursue my manifest destiny at Middlebury College. That's the operation executor, the top guy for operations under Jim Ryan. He pieced out earlier this year. Viewers and listeners, let us know your thoughts. We'll relay them live on air. Neil Williamson, president of the Free Enterprise Forum. How do you compare Southeastern Conference to the ACC from an athletics and academic standpoint? The SEC, Neil Williamson, great question. He's going to host Real Talk with Keith Smith this Friday at 10:15 a.m. on the I Love CVille network. Neil Williamson is the president of the Free Enterprise Forum. He's got his pulse on the community like Doc Holliday knows DeLoreans, like Richard Childress knows Chevrolets, like Dale Earnhardt knows mustaches, like Dale Jr. knows Budweisers, and like Judah Wickhauer knows button-down shirts and sweaters on an 85-degree day in downtown Charlottesville. Look at the man, rocking the cardigan and is that top shelf sweater you're wearing over there?
It's probably Old Navy.
This is your opportunity to say that this is
a $500 sweater. Yeah, sure. It's not 85, and it's certainly not 85 in here.
I'm wearing next to no clothes whatsoever. I have no shoes on. I have shorts on and a rowback that is barely close.
As is often the case.
Neil Williamson, SEC to ACC, they are incomparable from an athletic standpoint. The SEC is the bully on the playground that takes your Lunchables from you because he wants the crackers, the little sliced meats, and the little sliced cheeses. He's the bully on the playground, the SEC, that goes for your Ecto Cooler Slimer juice box and takes it and chugs it right in front of you. He's the bully in the playground, the SEC, that takes your Little Debbie Ho-Hos and your Twinkies and shoves them in his mouth all at once, doing it in front of you. The SEC is the bully on the college athletic playground. From an academic standpoint, dude, I'd stack up Duke, UNC, the University of Virginia against anything the SEC has to offer. What does the SEC have to offer from an academic standpoint? Vanderbilt? Vandy's a badass school. But I'll take Duke, UNC, UVA, Wake Forest over Vandy any day of the week and twice on Sunday. And so would you, and so would you, and so would you. Georgia Gilmer watching the program. She wants to talk Tubbies. Perfect transition into Tubbies. Bob Shada says, I doubt President Ryan was involved as a final decision maker and do believe there was a huge push by all the right people to keep him, but think his mind was made up a while ago. I heard these rumors over a month ago. The Brian O'Connor to Mississippi State rumors were going on easily over a month ago. Jerry Ratcliffe on the Jerry and Jerry show said he spoke to Brian O'Connor on the phone prior to doing a Jerry show and said, I confirm with Brian O'Connor on the phone that he's not leaving for Mississippi State, his exact words. So something changed over that period of time. Tubbies. Headline on screen. Is it on?
Just about.
Ladies and gentlemen, I spoke to somebody at Tubbies before this show started. They said the last day of business is June 27th. That coincides with an auction notification that's circulating around the internet that a auction will happen at Tubby's, ladies and gentlemen, on the 28th of June. This auction at Tubby's, everything must go. I'll read the notification to you. Live auction Saturday, June 28th at 10 a.m. Tubby's Restaurant, 1412 East High Street. Everything goes, equipment, cookware, other accessories. Buyer must have photo ID to register. All items sold with no guarantees. All sales final. The auctioneer, Pamela Collier, who's a licensed auctioneer in Virginia. I spoke to somebody on the phone at Tubby's June 27th, the last day for the institutional sandwich eatery and deli. Tubby's has been around since 1982. 1982.
Yeah.
That, ladies and gentlemen, is an icon. When you have been around for 43 years, you are a generational icon. Judah, the list of icons and restaurants that have closed in the last 12 months. Rattle them off to the viewers and listeners, Judah Wickhauer.
In the last 12 months, we've lost Blue Moon Diner, Moose's by the Creek, Aljo's Traditional Clothes, Reed's Grocery Store, Guadalajara Restaurant on Fontaine Avenue, Mel's Cafe, Lumpkin's Restaurant and Motel, Little John's New York Delicatessen, again, 10,000 Villages, End Zone Pizza, Belmont Pizza, and soon to be added to the list, Tubby's.
That right there, if we combine them, I would make you this bet. If we added, how many is on that list?
Let's see. 11.
11.
Soon to be 12.
Soon to be 12. I would bet you that is a collective aggregate combined if I put the over-under at 300 combined years in business that we've lost in the last 12 months, I would take the over on that.
As would I.
Over 300 years of collective institutional restaurant business on that list. Rattle them off again, Judah Wickhauer.
Not all restaurants, but Blue Moon Diner, Moose's by the Creek, Aljo's Traditional Clothes, Reed's Grocery Store, Guadalajara Restaurant on Fontaine, Mel's Cafe, Lumpkin's, Little John's, 10,000 Villages, End Zone Pizza, and Belmont Pizza.
Thank you for the clarification. Not all restaurants there. Reed's, a grocery store, Aljo's, a clothing store, 10,000 Villages, a retail store.
Yeah.
You take those, I guarantee you that if I put the over-under at 300, it would be over 300.
Most likely. I agree.
I mean, Aljo's alone, I think, is 75 years.
Yep.
Is it not?
Yep.
Tubby's is 45. Aljo's and Tubby's alone, ladies and gentlemen, are 120.
And how old is Lumpkin's?
Insane what is happening over the last 12 months, ladies and gentlemen. Icons. Kevin Yancey says, Tubby's is a victim of the debacle of traffic on High Street. Also losing 3 bigger clients, Martha Jefferson, State Farm, and LexisNexis. The Martha Jefferson Hospital was across from Tubby's, now on Pantops. Corin Capshaw purchased the old Martha Jefferson Hospital. It's been converted into a co-working space that I hear is somewhat floundering. East High Street, how would you characterize the traffic flow here? And we do it very respectfully.
It's usually not bad for me, but I'm not usually driving around in the middle of the day, so it's hard for me to gauge. I have been there when there was an accident on Long Street that pretty much tied up all traffic way past Tubby's. But I don't know how often that's a regularly occurring happening.
Maria Marshall Barnes' photo on screen. Maria Marshall Barnes leaves this comment. Is it Fragale family? How do you think I say Fragale?
Fragale?
The Fragale family ran an absolute amazing establishment. I am sad to see this close. However, it was honestly surprised the new owners lasted this long. John Blair makes this comment. I think Tubby's closure is part of a divide that I've mentioned before. What we're really seeing is the demise of working class Charlottesville. Tubby's was part of that old school part of CVille. So many of the closures are old school working class Charlottesville institutions. When people say Charlottesville is disappearing, that's what they really mean. The old school working class Charlottesville is disappearing. It's not my news to break, but I have heard from a very reliable source that another one of those institutions will close before the end of this calendar year. I can add a little color to that. There are 3 more icons in Charlottesville, beloved icons, that will be closing this calendar year.
Wow.
3 more that when you hear of their closing, you're going to be like, gut punch, kick in the nuts. He attributes it to gentrification, the cost of living, and the fact that the middle class and the working class cannot afford to live in Charlottesville anymore. Vanessa Parkhill shedding a tear for Tubby's. Georgia says the traffic isn't that bad on High Street, just impatient drivers.
Yeah.
Something is happening. I think John Blair's onto it. Something is happening. Is labor too expensive? Yes. Is the consumer straddled with overhead like they've never been straddled before? Grocery costs, fuel costs, credit card debt, Albemarle County taxes, City of Charlottesville taxes? Yes. Is the consumer eating out less? Yes. People are eating at home much more now because they don't have the disposable income. Are cost of goods expensive? Yes. Is rent out of control? Yes. All these things collectively create significant headwinds for the frontline business. And the frontline business, ladies and gentlemen, is someone that relies on somebody to walk into their brick and mortar and interact with a person and sell something to them. A frontline business could be 10,000 Villages that sells, I'm not even sure what 10,000 Villages sells, but it's absolutely beloved in this community. A frontline business could be Eljo's that's selling ties and bow ties and button-down shirts and sports coats and slacks. Mm-hmm. A frontline business could be something like Tubby's that's selling steak and cheese sandwiches. Or Blue Moon Diner that's selling the hog waller hash. Or Mel's that's selling fried fish. Or Moose's that's selling the scrambled eggs and bacon and breakfast potatoes.
Scrapple.
Somebody, a frontline business, you have to walk into a store, order something from a human, and get served or sold something. And that line of work is facing headwinds.
Of course it is.
Internet's cannibalizing that line of work. Elected officials that don't see the forest through the trees and continue to increase real estate taxes to the tune of 4 cents. Albemarle County, headwinds.
Also employers.
Employers. Make the employer argument.
Well, when you think you can do more and more and more with less and less and less, eventually you reach the end of your rope, and there's just you find that kiosks are not always the answer, and they're not going to keep your business running.
I get sent this message from Spencer Pushard. Spencer Pushard says Buffalo Wild Wings is going to do a go concept at 930 Olympia Drive. I think you have a headline for other restaurant news and the future restaurant business models that you can rotate on screen. Buffalo Wild Wings Go. Google that. Wings for delivery and takeout only. Buffalo Wild Wings at 930 Olympia Drive. It's in Charlottesville, Virginia. 930 Olympia Drive, ladies and gentlemen, in Charlottesville, Virginia, is going to go to Buffalo Wings Go. Takeout and delivery, Buffalo Wild Wings.
And consumers are also to blame.
A sports bar, a business model predicated on going to a brick and mortar location to watch sports on TV with your buddies, drink beer and eat wings, is saying we're going to pivot our model to takeout and delivery. Jesus. a national brand that has national resources, national capital, national intelligence, national research, national data, national knowledge, is literally saying our brand and company were created on sports. I remember when my wife and I tomorrow celebrate our wedding anniversary. In July, we've been together. August this year, we've been married or dated for 10 straight years. When she first came down from Manhattan to live with me when I was living in Redfields, for March Madness, we were bar hopping around Barracks Road when Barracks Road had Zinburger and Buffalo Wild Wings. We were bar hopping around there during March Madness. We started at Buffalo Wild Wings. I remember sitting there drinking beer, eating wings with her, watching the opening day of the big dance. Now Buffalo Wild Wings is legitimately saying we're going to do takeout and delivery and not prioritize in-person sports viewing. Insane.
I don't know if it's insane.
What has happened, ladies and gentlemen? COVID, the collateral damage from the pandemic, the collateral damage from piss-poor decisions from elected officials, the collateral damage from human behavior changing as it pertains to third-party delivery and internet usage, all of this which gained monumental momentum during COVID and the pandemic when we were instructed by the government to be recluses in our house and then given hundreds if not thousands of dollars to us as families or individuals to stay recluse in our home, changing human behavior forever, has absolutely radicalized and changed human behavior all over the country, and certainly in Charlottesville and Albemarle County. When the government was dishing out, when the Fed took interest rates to zero, and as a result, 30-year fixed mortgages dropped to 2.5%, no one ever envisioned, not Jerome Powell, not Ken Elzinga, not the best economists in the world, no one ever envisioned that 2.5%, 3% interest rates was going to drive up the cost of housing like it's done. Because the average Joe and the average Sally said, Jesus, I got a 2.5% or 3% rate. How the hell can I ever sell my house? Golden handcuffed to their crib forever because of their rate, throttling inventory, diminishing supply to a point that the supply that's on the market right now is at an all-time high from a price standpoint in Albemarle County and Charlottesville history, at the same time that groceries are more expensive, at the same time that gasoline's more expensive, at the same time that credit card debt's more expensive, at the same time that taxes are more expensive than ever. The perfect storm. Insanity.
Yeah, it's sad, and we're we've happily picked up the shovel that we're using to dig a big hole as tears pour down our cheeks that something is dying.
You called the tears alligator tears?
No,
call them
they're
phony
genuine.
tears?
People are, we talk all the time about the things that we're losing, and it's horrible. But we're all complicit. Every person that participates in the what was it? The wings to go.
Buffalo Wild Wings to go. BW3s to go.
Every person that participates that is adding another nail to the coffin.
Every
because
person
we're all
that
doing
is
this.
a
We're all
prime-
ordering stuff.
That is a Prime member, that is Prime ordering, Prime buying,
yeah.
that is one-day delivering, that is
Order-
Walmart shopping, Target shopping, Amazon shopping.
Order 3 pairs of shoes, try them on at home, send the 2 back that you don't want, or send them all back and ask for different sizes. We're becoming so accustomed to having our whims catered to us, and we're such a rich country, but I feel like it's all going into the wrong places. I mean, look around you. Everybody has one of these. These are not cheap. The people who are staying in the park.
He's holding an iPhone for those
Yes.
that are just listening.
Holding an iPhone, and look on the downtown mall. Look in the parks. When you see homeless people, I don't begrudge them owning a phone. In fact, they probably need it more than a lot of us. But the fact of the matter is, it's not that we're not talking about a loaf of bread or an apple. We're talking about a
$1,000 phone.
I doubt they're buying $1,000 phones, but who knows? I certainly haven't spent that much on one. But the fact of the matter is, we're prioritizing the very things that are.
I'm going to tell you right now, the restaurant model of the future, if Buffalo Wild Wings, who built its entire business on getting men and women to walk into their door to watch football on Saturdays and Sundays and basketball throughout the week while drinking beer and eating wings, is deciding to go to a tiny model for takeout and delivery only, they're basically saying it's not the in-person experience anymore. It's convenience, accessibility, and efficiency.
Yeah.
And these are the people that have locations all over the country that have millions, tens of millions of dollars in intelligence and research before opening any location. That's what they're telling us. E.G. Williams, watching the program. Jerry, you said you were checked out on going to movie theaters. Why wouldn't the same argument apply to a sports bar? Why spend a small fortune instead of just having some friends over? It's a great point from E.G. Williams.
Why spend $5, $6, $8 on a beer when you can spend just a little bit more and probably get a six-pack?
All right, I'll play devil's advocate with you. You said it's the Amazons of the world and the internets of the world and the Walmarts of the world and the Targets of the world and the Primes of the world that are killing the business owner. Well, how about us sitting on our couch in our tighty whities and our boxer shorts and our pennies and jerseys, chugging beer at home from our fridge and eating wings that was made in the kitchen instead of going out to the brick and mortars and doing the same?
That's why I said we're all complicit. That's why I said we've happily picked up the shovel with which we're digging the grave for business as we've known it. And every time somebody orders something instead of going out, and I'm not saying that everybody has to go out all the time, but we're consistently choosing. We're consistently choosing the easy way. We're consistently choosing we're consistently deciding that our own comfort is the better play. And eventually, that's not going to work. You're not going to have the businesses, or you're just going to have one big business that we're seeing it. We're seeing it now. How much is Amazon spending? Just a few miles from us, and we're potentially getting another data center, and all of this is little chinks in the armor of the system.
Judah Wickower, Jerry Miller, Monday edition of the I Love CVille show. So long, everybody.